Hi, this is Charlie Angus of the Resistance. On the day that Florida police tell citizens who protest that we will shoot you graveyard dead. On the day that Donald Trump finally gets his big military parade, one that would make dictators in Russia and North Korea jealous, and yet he says that anyone who dares heckle him will be met with extreme force. On the day the two senators are assassinated in Minnesota, maybe today's the day that we can start talking about the threat of fascist violence in the United States. Because we haven't had that conversation. Not really. I mean, ordinary people get it. That's why they're out in the streets facing down against the United States Marines. That's why ordinary Canadians on our side of the border are boycotting everything American. That's why people are speaking up against those in masks who kidnap people off the streets without the rule of law. But our pundits, our analysts, those specialists who explain politics to normal people, they just haven't wanted to call it for what it is. You know, I keep hearing them talk about waiting for Trump's overstep, or what will happen in the midterms, or waiting for the pendulum swing. That's not how fascism works. If you can arrest a judge in their courtroom, then you can arrest a mayor on the street. And if you can do that, you can throw a senator to the ground and hold him if he asks a question. And if you can get all those steps passed, then you move to the next level, which is political violence and assassination. And we just crossed that line today. Donald Trump has been using increasingly violent rhetoric because it's very clear he wants to push America over the brink so that he can bring in the kind of fascist control, totalitarian control. This is not some outlandish conspiracy theory. Anyone who's worked with Trump has talked about his love of Adolf Hitler. And the thing that he loved about Adolf Hitler was Hitler promoted the notion of the big lie. You see, Hitler said that if you get into trouble as a politician, it's because you tell small lies. What you got to do is you got to tell the big lie. You have to really say what you're going to do. Number one, it makes people think that you're not all that serious, but it kind of inoculates them to the extremism that you're promoting. And then if you actually do follow through, then they say, well, he said he was going to do it. So let's go back to Trump in his first reign. He wanted to use the military against the people in the streets. He wanted 10,000 soldiers against unarmed protesters in Washington. He was outraged that his staff still believed in the Constitution and the rule of law and wouldn't let him shoot people with the military. He started screaming at them, saying that they were fucking losers. They were making him look weak. Tom Hossman, who was his immigration rep then, talked about using the military to round up people to be deported and put in camps. And they talked about a number of 11 million people. That's how fascism works. That's authoritarianism. That's what we need to talk about. So where do we go from here? Well, we are right now at the precipice moment. And we have to be very, very clear about holding the line. In Canada, this idea with our pundits who talk about, scoring a deal with Trump, or that Trump's just being Trump, or that Mark Carney will somehow be the Trump whisperer, that's all ridiculous. That's not going to happen. That's not how fascists negotiate. We have to hold the line, and that really comes down to ordinary people who are holding the line on the boycott in a big way. But we also have to recognize that if political violence starts to spill out in the United States, the chances of it spilling over our borders become much more increased, because that is the fascist threat. So we have to hold the line. For our friends in the United States, I know this is a very frightening time, and you've shown some extraordinary heroism in standing up. But it is going to be much easier to stand up to fascism when it's getting started than when it is entrenched. We know that Trump has tacoed in the past. We have to make him taco again. But right now, we're holding a fragile line. And we're holding it because those who should be stepping up haven't stepped up. So my friends, from we the North to we the people, we are facing a very, very serious moment. But I know we can get through it by holding to truth and to the rule of law and to the right of citizens to stand up even in the face of threat. I'm Charlie Angus.